call the meeting to order now?
I'm here.
Oh, at 7:35.
Hey, I ran as fast as I could.
And roll call.
Next time, take your car.
I didn't remember today was a
Here.
meeting day.
Reed.
Yes.
Herrera.
Here.
Morris.
Here.
Jessup.
Here. Item 3, board to consider and take possible action, which we almost did, in the absence of the president and/or clerk, to appoint an acting president and/or acting clerk
I didn't get this.
for the school district to execute any and all documents pertaining to the calling of a special election to authorize general obligation bonds.
With our president and clerk here tonight, no action.
We don't need a motion or anything on that.
Whew.
We need a motion
Just a
to
little
table
stress.
that or take no action.
No action.
No action, skip it.
Item 4, board to take action on the employment of Stephen L. Smith Corporation as financial consultants to the school district.
Well, I do appreciate everyone's time this evening. Again, I'm Jordan Smith with Stephen L. Smith Corp. What we have before the board on our contract, it's pretty standard as far as a bond advisor. I'll thumb to the fee schedule page. We operate off of a scale. It's basically about 1% of the bond. There's some expenses that go into it. We have to have legal review as well. So it'll come in, depending on which bond election we go with, it'll come in between all of the expenses and the additional legal review. It's about $2,000 more than 1% as a general rule. So it's the best way to really ballpark it. What we do as financial advisor, we prepare all of the tax schedules on behalf of the school district. There's about 47 legal documents that go into a bond issue. We prepare all of those. We prepare your agenda items. We review your meeting filings. We'll file them if we need to have a special meeting and so forth. Once we get into the, we'll file everything with the county election board to make sure everything's been filed on time, get their receipts. We're required to file legal publications. It's legal notice of the election. It's not an article. It's not a news story. We're more than happy to help answer questions if that comes up in a news story, but we don't initiate anything of that nature. We simply satisfy the legal requirements to conduct the election properly. Once the election's passed, then we actually package the financial information. We submit that to about 40 or 50 different banks. And then when the bids come in, we come back. There's 3 board meetings. The first one is to call for the election. The second one is to call for the sale of the bonds. The third one is to actually award those bonds in the financial market. We'll come back for that board meeting where we award the bonds, open up the bids. We received 4 bids today. Our low bid was a 2%. We have projected 3. The market's at 2%. This is a good bid. We'll make a recommendation on selecting a bid, or in the rare circumstance, it hasn't happened in my 13 years, but if we need to reject the bids and resubmit, we'll walk the board through that process as well. Once we've awarded the bonds, then we have to package that information, submit it to legal review. It goes to the district attorney, the attorney general, and the private bond counsel. Once all of the attorneys have signed off on it, then the money can actually be transferred to the school and you can start the construction process. Throughout the campaign stage, we work with the district to help explain the bond. If you want to have any community meetings, we'll come back out to answer questions. Sometimes it may not be a community meeting, but there may be a business luncheon or something that we need to come out and attend. Anything we can do to help communicate that. What we like to do is train you all and prepare you for 90% of the questions that you're going to face. I think it's reasonable from time to time to say, I'm not sure, let me look into it. But what I don't want to do is inundate you with all the needless details. We want you to be able to explain it to the public, explain it in a way that's clear and simple so that when people sit down to vote, they really know what they're voting on. That's a real quick snapshot of what we actually do as financial advisor. If the bond fails, we don't get paid. The only thing that we ask is to be reimbursed for that legal expense to publish the newspaper. We have to pay that on your behalf so that they'll actually print it in the paper. And so we simply ask to be reimbursed for that expense, but it's strictly just a dollar for dollar reimbursement. So we've always felt like if you didn't get your money, why should we get ours? Any questions that I can answer regarding the contract or what we do as financial advisor, any part of the process of a bond?
That's just I saw the county deals at the bottom of that. It doesn't matter how many counties you're in, does it? Just if you're in more than one county.
It's $100 per county.
Okay.
Yes, sir, because we have to do extra filings with the different counties.
Okay.
So. You can pay the fee out of bond proceeds. that's something that you can do. And how the billing works as well. We get the bond issue passed, we get it sold, you get your money. About 45 days after you get your money is when you'll finally get our bill. So we don't get paid anything, again, unless it passes, and even when it does, we're not paid until you've already received your money. So there's no partial billing, you'll basically just get one invoice from us at the end.
So if you're in 3 counties, you just get charged for the two because the one already goes with it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So if
We
you're in
got
3
Hardin,
counties,
Harper, don't we?
it'd be $200 extra for the other county.
Okay, that's, yeah.
I think they took Harper out, didn't they?
I don't know. The only place that I'm thinking of is if you're west, like out there by mom and dad's, that county line there, if there was anybody living over by Burstall's, if there was.
I think they took him out,
Did
but
they?
I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure they did.
Took them out. What district would they be in then? Buffalo? Or
They
Woodward?
didn't.
Cause I know Woodward runs all the way.
They didn't take them out of our school district.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't vote for the
We
school
closed,
board.
closed precinct. There's not a voter, but it still has to be,
I don't know
it
if
still
she
has
told
to
me
be
it would.
filed.
I doubt
Yeah,
it.
It's pretty, yeah, it's pretty, you may have closed precincts, voting precincts, and consolidated, but it's pretty unusual for a district to give up property,
Yeah.
that you service, so.
Yeah, we close precincts for the election because on the school board election, we close precincts, is what we did on that. So we wouldn't have to pay election board, precinct people to sit out there where there wasn't a voter.
Don't need me, I don't.
Yeah. Well, it won't just be the only place we vote here, will it? I mean,
Jordan, can you close precincts on a bond election?
You can, and I'm glad that we're kind of talking about this because we'll need to specify in that resolution, you can close precincts if you want to. As long
Well-
as there's less than 100 voters, that reside within,
Like,
and there's
like
some
Glenn
statutory
just,
limits.
like Glenn just mentioned, we've got a number of voting precincts here in this school district
Mhm.
because of,
Just precinct
sparse,
boundaries.
sparse population, that we do not have voters in, and Hardin County is one of them.
Absolutely.
It's just a big patch of land out there nobody lives in.
Now,
And
you can close a precinct. The statutory requirement is there have to be fewer than 100 registered voters, and we need to identify those precincts when we do that.
well,
Have they been open on generals out there? They brought them all in here, haven't they?
I don't know, no, mom and dad have to
They
go,
go to
they
Moreland.
gotta go to Moreland to vote.
Woodward County
Yeah.
is to Woodward, or Moreland.
Yeah. Anybody on that side of the river, you gotta go to Moreland,
So I wonder if
cause they closed the deal out there. at
I wonder if the
caves.
election board has already closed some of those or redistrict, if you will, the precincts.
Well, I'm wondering if they redistrict, cause they used to come to town, didn't they?
I don't know
Caves?
what they do.
Caves. Anybody that was voting at, anybody that was voting at the caves has to go to Moreland now.
Well, they're doing it different than in a general than they are in a school.
Are they?
They
Yeah.
must be. Because where did they come on the, school board election?
I didn't even ask them, I just
That's what
have to
Lynn
think
was
about
They
it.
go to Moreland. Woodward County did.
Yeah. Did they had?
White, or Darren, and Hughes.
Yeah, they go.
CE and all them, they had to go to.
Yeah, that's right, Dad and them went to Moreland, yeah.
Did we pay for anything down there? We should have been billed for it.
Yeah, I don't remember. It's been too
On
long.
a general election, maybe divided up. If there was anything else, it may have been split up a little bit more equally.
I don't even remember. I don't remember.
This year he's talking about.
I know that the only time it was, I remember when I was first on the board, cause I was living out there, and I got the question, well, he's not registered to vote. Yes, I am. You got to call Woodward County, that's where I live at. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can close a precinct. Typically what we'll see with bond elections specifically is really only the precincts where nobody lives. The board will close those down because by law, as I understand it, election board still has to have those open, even if there's not a single registered voter in
If
that
you don't
district.
close it.
If you don't
do.
close it, you'll pay for a precinct officer to sit out there all day. There was a school we had that they had literally, they said it's underwater. It's been part of the lake for 15 years. But technically, it's still a precinct, and so they have an office that it's on the dock or something. I don't know where they
Gotta
put it.
pay
But
somebody to run the boxes and everything.
But a lot of times now, the few that we'll see with a bond election, if there's a precinct that just has 2 or 3 voters in it, then sometimes they'll close that. But if there's,
We'll have that situation.
if there's more than 15 voters or so, most districts will leave that precinct open, just to give everybody an opportunity to vote, without making it any kind of inconvenience for anyone. The election board will send, I think they send out an absentee or they send out a notice, your precinct's been closed, you'll need to vote in person here or by absentee ballot. So they reach out to them well in advance and notify them that it's closed. And again, absentee voting, you can start typically the Friday before the election. You can vote in person absentee at the election board as well. So.
I'm sure most of those people would rather drive 6 miles to Freedom than 25 miles to.
Oh, yeah.
To Moore.
They still gripe about it out there.
But we can close precincts, and again, the state limit is as long as there's fewer than 100 registered voters.
I can't remember the count.
Not 100.
No, there's not.
It's like 18, I think.
Pretty close to 40, I think.
Is there? I was gonna say, that's part of the reason why they closed it, 'cause
Went from Burkhart's to Hughes's to, Jay Rankin's,
yeah, bookstores.
to your mom and dad's.
Now, the election board expense is the one expense that they will bill you directly. All other expenses, the legal publications, any filings and so forth, those go through our office, but the election board, that's the one expense they'll bill you directly for. So I didn't think about that when we were talking about the expenses earlier, so.
But if you do close them, those people still can vote by absentee or
Absolutely, they
whatever,
can still
okay?
vote by absentee, and as I understand it, they also have a different precinct that they can drive to vote as well, or at the main election board office, they can vote absentee in person. So they can do it by mail, their temporary precinct, if you will, or in person at the election board.
Keep them from voting, just move them wherever.
Yeah, that's the one thing that's what I was getting at. If you close a precinct, does that mean they're, you know?
No, the only thing is just a different location.
Okay.
And
But
they
again, they're
will-
notified well in
They'll
advance.
get a certified letter, I believe, or something that,
Right.
plenty of time, that will explain where their voting location is or absentee. So we are looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to employ Stephen L. Smith Corporation of Financial Consultants in the school district.
Your second?
I'll second. Or did you second? Yeah.
Is there?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Bowler.
Yes.
Inhofe. Reed. Yes.
Herrera.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Jessup.
Item 5, board to consider and take action on a resolution authorizing the calling and holding of a special election to be held in this school district to authorize the issuance of general obligation bonds.
All right, what we have, the resolution that we have prepared, and we can change this tonight if we want to add anything or change anything to it, but the resolution as we've drafted it right now, the projects included the restroom renovations, HVAC renovation to replace the boiler, the gymnasium renovation, total of, comes in at $819,000, the secure entrance upgrades, and the VOAG facility we have as a renovation. It's my understanding that you have 2 different options that you were looking at in the past, a new VOAG facility versus renovating. The updated restrooms, the boiler and the architectural engineering, the professional to go into that, is estimated at $179,800. The gymnasium renovation, and the gymnasium renovation includes the roofing, new wall cladding, insulation, the retractable goals, 4 practice goals, lighting, fans, HVAC, seating for 450 people, ceiling in the rear corridor, and updated lockers. That's all included in that gymnasium renovation. That gym renovation comes in with professional design and engineering fees at $819,300. The secure entrance upgrades, $35,750. And the VOAG renovation, which includes the foam roof, gutters and downspouts, repair the roof deck, and reinforce the trusses. In the shop, it removes the ceiling paint, welding exhaust, updating lighting, repair pipe leaks, and then restroom renovations in that VOAG facility as well. There's also the south office classroom interior renovations, ceiling, walls, floors, and lighting. And again, the optional in the north classroom, ceiling, walls, floor, and lighting. And then the design engineering comes in at $241,250. And the total of all of those is $1,276,100. There's not any, as I've seen, and he may have this built into his pricing as well, contingency. A lot of times they'll add 5% contingency. Just as a round figure, when we received the 1.276, we ran a bond schedule for 1.3 million, just to see what that looks like. With your valuation, the 1.3 million, and we would be voting this, right now we have it drafted for the November ballot date, but what I've got here is a bond schedule in the amount of $1,300,000 even. This is dated April of 2016. April is basically the earliest. Those are the exact same.
Oh.
Oh, does everyone have a copy? An April, a May, or a June dated bond is going to have a lower tax impact than if we sell it any other month out of the year. The reason being, for whatever reason, way back when they set up April, May, and June bonds, a 10-year bond will be levied 10 equal times, so it'll be divided up into 10 equal parts. A 10-year bond that's dated July all the way through March, 10-year bond will be divided up into 9 equal parts. So it's a little bit higher tax impact if we go any earlier or any later. April is the earliest possible date that we could obtain the money with a November ballot and still take advantage of that lower tax impact. Now, April 2016, 1.3 million on a 10-year issue. This is based on 5% interest too. 10-year bonds are selling between 1.5% and 2% right now. So this is a much, much higher interest rate. Additionally, we've shown no increase in valuation. Now, we don't have our 2015-16. We hadn't received them in our office yet on valuations. So this is still based on our 14-15 valuation, but we're showing absolutely zero increase to the property value, and we're showing basically double the current interest rates right now. This is about as worst case scenario as we can realistically project, and that's why we try and project it that way. You're at 2.3 mils this year. You are going to drop because your 2007 bond has already paid off. So you'll have one down year. From 0 to that 11.52, if interest rates came in at 5%, you don't increase in valuation. About 15%. So if you're paying $100 in property taxes, about $115. If you have an escrowed and yeared mortgage, it's about $1.30 per month. Again, I know most people aren't paying $100, but it's pretty quick, simple math. What we like to do on the tax cost is find just one or two clear sentences that explain that. If you're paying $1,000 in property taxes, it's about $12 a month, $13 a month. So if you're paying $1,000 in property taxes for 2 people to go to Sonic once a month, that's the cost. And everyone likes to pick something kind of different, but what we try and do is get it in a way that's pretty real and personal so that people can understand the tax cost. If you have extra money left over at the end, so we go out, and the reason I've estimated a little bit high, pay for any additional bond advisory fees and so forth, it does give you a little bit of cushion if prices change on you a little bit. If you have any money left over at the end, the way the statutes read, once you've satisfied the ballot projects, so the projects that you voted on, those projects that I listed, once you've satisfied those projects and you have money left over, then the board basically has 2 choices. You can pay down the bond a little bit, or you can accomplish other similar projects that you could normally do under a bond package. You can't shift it to transportation. Bond monies can never be spent on any kind of salaries, any kind of payroll expenses or anything else, but you could replace other ceiling tiles, you could buy more textbooks, you could buy school uniforms, you could renovate maybe some other parts of the building that didn't get touched. But again, you have to satisfy the ballot projects first. So anything, that's a lot to swallow bond numbers wise. Any information regarding the bond, the cost of the bond schedules themselves. Again, what we try and do is estimate about worst case scenario as much as we realistically can. You'll notice this is a 10-year bond, starts at 11.5. Every year it's going to pay down, and that's at no increase in valuation. By the end of it, really by year 5, you're almost at half of, well, not quite half, but you're 40%, 35% lower halfway into this than you were when you started out. And again, that's assuming no increase in your property values at all, which, again, they search me right, you've got a long-term pattern of increased valuation. I know it can be spotty at times. I know we all get nervous with the economy and with oil and so forth. I know that's a big impact out here. Stashed them in my folder somewhere. Here it is. Long term, your long term average going back to 96, 97, you averaged about a 3% increase over time. Your short term is about 3.7. You have had some years where you've been up and down a little bit, but again, all the way back, well, 2005, 2006, so 10 years ago from this fiscal year, your value was 9.5 million. 14, 15 year, 18.3. So you've had a long-term pattern of growth, and we're showing no growth going forward, and still with that no growth, as it pays down, those taxes will trickle back down as well. So. The November ballot date is November 10th. That would be the day that, if we went forward, that would be the day that it was actually voted. It takes about a month on the short term, so it passes on the 10th. It would take at least a month before we could actually sell the bonds. From the date of the sale, it's normally about 60, 70 days until the money could be in hand. So that would put us out, really, you throw the holidays in there, you're talking 1st of March anyways. That's why we went ahead and dated it April 1st. Give us a little bit of time to work with and take advantage of that lower tax impact. So still pretty much right on track with the November voting date. Throw the holidays in, it's about as fast as we could sell it anyway. So. Any questions or anything to discuss?
If you ran the numbers, say at 2%, I know you don't want to represent it that way, but.
Right.
you know,
At 2%, you're not going to be at half on your millage rate. You're probably going to be in the 9.5 to 10 range. Probably right around 10 mils. Most of our schools, we operate this way, and most of our schools average anywhere from a mil to 2 mils lower than what we've projected. So at 2%, you're going to save some money. It's going to put you on the actual tax cost. It's going to put you down at, instead of 15%, maybe 14%, maybe the high 13s. So it'll save some money. Your bigger impact is going to be what's going to happen with your valuation. As valuation goes up, that's going to have a much bigger impact on the bond itself. So.
The most important thing is this line right here, where it retains the same.
Yeah.
Some schools, in circumstances where you're sitting, they'll compare with, going from 2 mils to 15. You're going to have that gap year, and right about the time that you're voting is when tax bills are going to be coming out. So that's why we tried to show from 0 to 11 mils what that actual impact is. Now, one question that comes up, if it's 11 mils, why is it 15%? Well, the way we actually calculate, and you can kind of read it on this schedule, at 0 bond mils, your total millage for a patron in your district, they're going to be paying about 74 mils. Well, an 11 mil increase divided by 74 is not 11%. If you were at 100, then 11 mils would be 11%. But if you're only at 74 mils, when you divide 11 into 74, That works out to about, again, about that 15%. Print it out, let me look it up quickly. Well, it's been a little time since it was on the tax roll. Yeah, the previous bond was down, it was lower on the millage rate. Now, back in 2000, you were at 13 mils. 1999, 2000, 2001, and that's quite a ways back in time now, but it's not something that we've never had before, or drastically higher. 2003, you were still at 11. 10.9 in 04, and I guess the last one, bond paid, that 1999 bond paid off in 04, the 5-year issue.
Any other questions? Anything else?
I can't think of anything. The one question that comes up, if you wanted to separate pieces or make any changes, then I think specifying that in a resolution, the one question we get is, well, how do we motion? And again, as we've drafted the resolution, it's for the projects, as I mentioned, again, specifying that the ag building, yes, the ag building is a renovation, not the new building. We've drafted it at 1.3 million for the November ballot date. If a board member is acceptable with that, I think a motion to approve as presented is fine. If you wanted to specify any different projects or a different dollar amount, a different election date, I think specifying that in your motion would be probably the most appropriate way to address it.
We have all been in agreement, I don't know if we still are, but kind of on what we want to do.
It's tough, and it's, when you're looking at projects like this, it's tough to whittle down what do you really want to do, the cost of a project, do we really need to go out for that kind of bond and so forth. Part of the challenge is we're setting numbers tonight that we're not going to know that cost on, either interest rates, and that's why we show it at 5% interest rates, or bid price. And your bid price, you're going to get the money in April, bidding in hopefully May. Maybe on an early time frame on some of these things. It's going to take the architect's time to get the final drawings done. You've got on competitive bidding, you got a 21-day window minimum. You're looking at 6 months down the road. Steel can change on you real fast, as we all know. And I don't think it doesn't look like it's going that direction, but oil prices can change and shipping costs go up. I mean, they can change on you pretty quick. And so having that little bit of protection, the most important thing are, did we give them what they asked for? Did we give them what they approved? The biggest challenge that we see is when districts vote a bond and for whatever reason they've got to cut back on what that expectation is. And when they have to cut back, that's the biggest challenge to overcome. I've seen districts that literally 25 years later are still talking about, you left the stage off the front end of that practice gym. And the superintendent had to say, I was a first-year teacher. I had nothing to do with that. You left the stage off the front end of that practice gym. So it becomes a challenge, and again, forecasting out several months out, 6-8 months out into the future, it gets a little difficult.
Bowler. Reed.
Yes.
Herrera.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Jessup.
We have some documents for our president and clerk that we can adjourn and sign it.
It's gonna need a notary, correct?
I've got a notary. These actually don't need it, we just need the school seal.
Superintendent's desk.
Okay.
I hope we get adjourned, you didn't put that on the agenda.
And I apologize.
I'm gonna write item number 6 as adjournment. 8:05. Is there a second?